Hello everyone, my name is Amy Deloya and I am the proud literacy coach here at Abbott Hill University, and I am excited to present to you this year's first Parent University on Literacy. Based on survey responses, the most popular response was that parents wanted to hear about how they could support young writers at home. So let's get into it. Writing is the painting of the voice, which is just a quote that I found that I thought really captures the essence of writing and how writing can be used as self-expression. And it's just a way for students to capture their thoughts and ideas in written form. So what does the research say about writing instruction? Writing is essential for academic learning, social communication, and employment in modern society. Students will grow up, even in this digital age, having to have the necessary typing skills, of course, but they also need to understand how language conventions work and typing formal things like resumes, and it is a part of our everyday life. Writing is expected across all content areas, meaning it's not just taught during the language arts block of the school day. It is something that happens in math in terms of explaining your thinking, science experiments, as well as writing in history and so on. Writing benefits reading, and I'll get into a little bit more about that reading-writing connection and how they're related later in the presentation. And research also tells us that reading comprehension improves when students write responses to something that they've read, which is another best practice in reading and writing instruction. And this is something that happens in our classrooms here weekly, starting in kindergarten. And lastly, the effort of writing nurtures better command of language. In other words, the more students are exposed to print in the form of books or letters, essays, the more likely those skills will get transferred into their own writing. So why is writing so difficult? And I apologize for the blurriness of this image, but you'll be seeing it again on the next slide. Research tells us that skilled writing expression is the result of foundational skills times composition. So you can't have one without the other. Those foundational skills are what our K2 students are learning and mastering, and then after those skills are formed and they have a solid foundation, then we start into more of the composition type of writing. And every aspect of writing is demanding. And the reason that is because it's using all of the executive functions in our brain, from working memory to self-regulation to cognitive flexibility. It's a very heavy lift. There's a lot of skills involved in learning how to write. It is the latest developing and most complex language skill. Requires the integration of a number of skills, like the brain I just explained, as well as fine motor skills, having some organization and thoughts and processes. Handwriting is huge, and there's also a number of sub-skills involved in proficient writing, which are listed here. And this research, again, is taken from the LETTERS course, which our teachers have either finished or are currently enrolled in. It's a 2-year comprehensive professional development course about the science of reading. It's a body of research that tells teachers best practices. It is not a curriculum that your students are learning. Rather, it is a college level course that teachers are taking here in Fulton County to further their knowledge in best practices and how to implement the science of reading across their reading instruction, phonics, grammar, writing, all of the above. So I have a short 2.5-minute video from a LETTERS module, which is something that the teachers would go through, and it does a great job of explaining that simple view of writing. Here we go.
Now, let's look at some of the specific sub-skills under each domain of writing. Foundational writing skills are all the skills that students need to transfer thoughts into writing. a story, they'll need a plot with a beginning, middle, and end. And finally, writers need awareness of their audience, formatting skills needed to address that audience clearly. For example, writing a story for a family member may be different from writing an out to an audience. Ultimately, writing is reflex. That's what means information.
Okay, thank you for listening to that video. Let me just go ahead and get out of this window. Here we go. And current slide. Great. All right, so how can you support your students' foundational writing skills at home? So first and foremost, we want to encourage correct letter formation, especially in those early grades, making sure that we're forming letters from top to bottom, making sure that they're writing left to right so that it can ease the cognitive load for them, as well as making sure that we have our handwriting fluency. Just like reading has fluency, we want to make sure that writing fluency is occurring. We also want to make sure we strengthen our students' fine motor or pencil grip, and that takes away some of the effort. So once they have a solid grip in terms of writing with a pencil or a pen, I do have some visuals here that you can look at as well. We want to make sure that the pen or pencil is stable, that one or two fingers are resting on top of the pencil, and that the pencil rests against the third finger. Spelling practice. Now, you may have noticed over the course of the last couple of years, students are not bringing home traditional spelling lists, and that is purposeful. We have adopted a curriculum here in Fulton County put on by the 95% group, and it has a very comprehensive, systematic, sequential, explicit way of teaching phonics from kindergarten through third grade, and then students in fourth and fifth grade are using what we call vocabulary surge as their phonics instruction. So I did have the kindergarten through third grade phonics scope and sequences available for parents that were able to attend in person. If that is something you would like for your kindergarten through third grader, please email me. My email address will be at the on the last slide. And something, you can still do at home is just practice spelling words with known phonics patterns, meaning we're not going to ask students to spell multisyllabic words if they're still working on simple CVC words like cat, sounding out k, at, things like that. And the next slide, how can I support composition writing? So that's that second part of our simple view of writing. And I just put some visuals up because in school, students are exposed to three major genres: narrative writing, opinion writing, and informational writing, or sometimes it's referred to as expository writing. And these are just examples of visuals that you might find it in your child's classroom. And writing within these genres happens throughout the year. It's not just happening in isolation. If students are in a narrative writing unit currently, that will be circled back to within the next month or two. So each genre is being explicitly taught to your students, and they're looking at mentor texts, and they're also looking at different sources. So in order to continue to develop your child as a writer and a thinker, is you want to encourage their curiosities and deepen their interests, and that can be done through experiences, through books, finding out what really motivates them. You want to continue developing a rich vocabulary with them, speaking to them like you would speak to an adult, using big words, and encouraging them to ask about the meaning of a word if they don't know it, whether it comes across on a TV show or a video game or in conversation or even in a book. Responding to reading. Now, this doesn't have to happen every time you read at home, but just going beyond questions like, what's your favorite part? You might want to ask, what kind of feelings did the characters have in this story? And the more you can get students articulating their thoughts and ideas about books, the more it will transfer to their writing skills. You could also encourage students to write letters, thank you notes after birthday parties, journaling about traveling experiences, celebrations unique to your culture or traditions, having them participate in holiday cards, and just different types of places that they visited, experiences. Perhaps they could write a review on a restaurant they really liked or didn't like. And also reading within the various genres, your fiction stories, your nonfiction stories, and noticing the author's craft, the purpose, the audience. So if you have books that your child is bringing home from the library, you can point out the fact that if they're bringing home a book about an animal or an elephant, for example, you can tie in and say, oh, this author was writing an informational book. And just tying in the connection between reading and writing is really important. So what is next? Home versus school. So at home, the biggest skills that teachers would appreciate parents' support with would be just letter formation, handwriting practice, spelling practice, again, with those known spelling patterns, writing for pleasure, journaling, having diaries, and writing cards, things like that were previously mentioned. But school is where they're going to learn the important skills to help them be successful as writers. They're going to be learning how to spell words through sound spelling mapping. In other words, leave the hard stuff to the teachers. And of course, if you want more specific ideas you can do to help your student individually, please reach out to your teacher. That would be your first point of contact. But also leave the handwriting is in both columns here because handwriting does get explicitly taught in the kindergarten year. However, that is something that both parents and teachers are constantly working on with students. Writing conventions, those are taught in school as well. Capital letters, spaces, ending punctuation, genre-specific writing, like I previously mentioned, students continuously write in the narrative, expository, and opinion genre here in school. They're also taught specific craft moves. That means how to include dialogue, for example, in writing pieces, or how to use sensory details, transition words. Those types of skills are taught specifically and explicitly in classrooms. Students are also taught how to respond to reading using text evidence, meaning they're analyzing a book or a source or an article and using information from that article to pull out and form opinions on or explain information from. And organization. So teachers in school will help with the order in which writing should occur, meaning in narratives, we need our introduction, we need our 2 to 3 points in our paragraphs. In opinion writing, you'll also need your introduction, as well as 2 or 3 reasons to convince your reader, and then a strong closing. All of those structures are taught explicitly in the classroom. So thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions or would like to follow up, if you need any resources from me as a literacy coach, I am happy to provide them. The easiest way to get a hold of me is email. It's Deloya, DELOIA, @fultonschools.org. Again, thank you for your time and attention and for supporting your learner here at Abbotts Hill. Have a wonderful day.